but it's really happening. The change is here. And I am thrilled to pretty much turn everything over to Jim Seymour, who is our astrologer today, who is brilliant. He's done my readings. Um, he is an incredible, very poetic astrologer. I will say that, very poetic. I think the best astrologers are best writers because they can really interpret the language of the universe really well. I think it's almost goes hand in hand. It's very hard to be a bad communicator and a great astrologer because you're basically a translator of the language of the cosmos and in so many ways. And so thank you for being here, Jim. I'm going to unmute you and I'm going to, as I said, just turn the floor completely over to you and I'm going to mute myself.
Wow. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, if it wasn't for my wife, Joelle, joining you many years ago in your Tao of Dana and your School of Intention, I wouldn't be here today. So I have to give credit where it's due. And I love whenever Joelle's tuned in to you on one of your seminars or your workshops or your live Zooms, and I walk through the room. Every time I walk through the room, I'm picking up wisdom of feng shui and all these things. And I've learned so many things vicariously this way. So I just wanted to offer this up because one of the archetypes of Neptune is the divine feminine spiritual mysticism, the downloads of inspired creativity coming from the higher realms. And Dana, you are definitely a master at what you do, and you bring so much enthusiasm and positivity and just can-do spirit. So I just wanted to start with that. So thank you so much for inviting me on today. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Um, I'm going through my own dark night of the soul. I'm in a transformational process in my own inner world, which is good because I'm very raw and real right now. And this is one of the archetypes of Aries energy. The the key phrase for Aries is I am. So in astrology, Aries has everything to do with our identities. So we can fill in the blank. I am this, I am that. And depending on your level of conscious evolution, you will identify yourself with something, someone, some self-concept, some way of showing up in the world. And so, yes, Neptune into Aries, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you have been tracking this across the social media world and on YouTube and the internet. This is a big, big shift in the collective consciousness, one that we haven't seen for 165 years. And the last time that Neptune ingressed into Aries was April 13th, 1861. And this ingress happened within hours, literally within hours of those first infamous shots that were fired at Fort Sumter, which brought the United States into the Civil War. Now, I want to give a little caveat here right at the beginning. I'm paraphrasing Mark Twain because I did a little research on this quote. Mark Twain is credited with saying this, and there's a lot of dispute out there. I'm just going to assume he did say it because he was a very wise man. He was a sage in his time, and he used humor and creativity to really guide humanity in wonderful ways. But Mark Twain is credited as saying, history doesn't actually repeat, but it sure does rhyme. So I wanted to put that out there because obviously we don't need any astrologers to tell us that there's a lot of change going on in the world. There's a lot of ways of viewing reality that are shifting. There's a lot of ways of interpreting who we are. Again, back to that Aries archetype of identity, I am. And so Neptune, if we just want to tune in to the planet Neptune just for a moment. In astrology, Neptune is known as the higher octave of Venus. So where Venus deals with romantic love, earthly beauty, aesthetic beauty, right? The realm of the senses, because she rules Taurus, and Taurus is the sign of the five senses of the body. Taurus is very tactile and kinesthetic. Taurus is very somatic. So Venus is the ruling planet of Taurus. And so Venus has rulership or dominion or influence over these realms of the world that have so much to do with textures, fragrances, and aromas, So think of good food cooking in the kitchen, or think of a really yummy stick of incense that you've just lit on your altar, right? This is the realm of Taurus. So the Venusian themes move in and out of the earthly plane. And so Venus has this resonance with her big sister, with her transcendental higher octave planet Neptune. So whereas Venus is aesthetic worldly beauty of color and form and architecture and textures and aromas and fragrances and the just the yumminess and beauty of this world, Neptune takes it a step higher and goes into the realms of divine love, divine beauty, higher spiritual inspiration, the transcendent realm of intuition, right? How do you say? That sixth sense that we all have, those gut feelings, those hunches that we get, right? That clairvoyance, that psychic ability. That's the realm of Neptune. So whereas Venus is this earthly, tactile, kinesthetic realm of the world of form and beauty, Neptune is that realm beyond the veil. Neptune rules those realms which are invisible, the invisible realms. But it's not so much about belief as it is that gut intuitive knowingness. Like there was that line in the movie The Matrix when the Oracle, played by the wonderful actress Gloria Foster, she was baking cookies in the kitchen, and Neo came to visit her for knowledge. And she says, "No one can tell you you're in love. You just know it through and through." So this, although Neptune is associated with our belief systems, right? Our spiritual ideals, our religious fervor, it's really that when we quiet down the mind and we drop into that sense of the presence that's never in absence. Neptune is that intuitive knowingness. You just know certain things. And this leads in the material world, this leads to a lot of debate and controversy and arguments because we're living in the very end of a scientific era, the realm of the logic, of the reasonable mind, the logical mind, the analytical mind, right? And now we're talking about Neptune, which is beyond the realm of sense perception. There's a Sanskrit word, adhoksaja. Adhoksaja means beyond the realm of sense perception. And so I took some notes here. I jotted down some things just to kind of give us some context so we have a framework to go into this with, okay? So Neptune just finished, as you all know, a long transit in the transcendental oceanic mutable water sign of Pisces. And Neptune was in Pisces from April 2011 onwards. And that's, interestingly enough, that's when I started my business. Starduster Services was in March of 2011. So it was right as Neptune was leaving Aquarius, which is the sign of technology and the internet and inventions and all of that. And it entered Pisces. And so that's when I became a professional astrologer. Although I've been reading charts since 1994, I started into this business when Neptune entered Pisces. So on March 30th, which was just Saturday, just a couple of days ago, Neptune finally finished that long, slow transit through the oceanic transcendental realms of Pisces and just made this ingress into Aries. And Neptune, this is just that taste sample. This is that appetizer feeling of Neptune and Aries that we're going to have now. A lot like when Pluto first dipped into Aquarius, remember that? And then went retrograding back into Capricorn for a few months. So we got a little preview. We got to see a little movie trailer of the themes and energies and archetypes that we're going to be navigating through. And so Neptune on this initial ingress will be in Aries until October 22nd later this year, when Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces, and then it'll make its final ingress. Neptune's gonna hang out at that 29th degree again. So this is an extremely powerful degree in the sky. It's the final degree in the final sign, which is associated with the final house of our charts. Pisces is the realm of the 12th house, right? That hidden house, the house of the subconscious, the house of the collective consciousness, the house of the realm of dreams and inspiration, and all those things that are hidden from plain view. The 12th house has a lot to do with places of spiritual retreat, places of pilgrimage, holy sites and power vortex centers like the pyramids of Giza and Sedona in Arizona and other places that have very strong ley lines that run along the surface of the earth. This is the realm of the 12th house. It's the house of seclusion, meditation, the inner world, right? Dropping into those meditative transcendental states where we merge with the divine and receive inspiration. So this ingress is very powerful because when it goes back, Neptune's going to stay there. So we're going to have one last look at all the realms that this represents. The final degree. In astrology, we call it the anaretic or the critical degree, because this is the sum total cumulative effect of any planet as it makes its 365-degree arc around the zodiac. This final degree is like the last scene in the play before the curtain closes, right? So this is the summation, the culmination, the archetypal climax, like reaching the summit of Mount Everest. This is it. And of course, there's higher and lower realms, which we'll get into in a minute. But so the whole world is right on the cusp of an entirely new era of human civilization, one that's never been seen before. And of course, human civilizations have gone through periods of great transformation many, many times. There have been cultural revolutions. There have been political revolutions. There have been industrial revolutions. There have been technological revolutions. There have been great scorpionic, how do you say, metamorphic, catalytic changes of one phase into another, right? This great, great societal transformation. And so we're talking about technology, CGI, AI, satellite telecommunications, SpaceX, rockets, space exploration. Again, it's happening again, right? We're kind of surveying our local neighborhood in the solar system. So the final ingress back into Aries of Neptune is going to be this next January 26th in 2026. And this ingress will be affecting any of your 4 major angles in your chart, in your personal horoscope, that run between the degrees of 28 degrees of the mutable signs, right? So the mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So if you have any of your 4 major angles in your chart, which are the ascendant or the first house cusp, the nadir or the 4th house cusp, the descendant or the 7th house cusp, or your midheaven, which is your 10th house cusp. If you have these 4 major angles of your chart between 28 degrees of the mutable signs and 2 degrees of the cardinal signs, which of course the cardinal fire sign is Aries, the cardinal water sign is Cancer, the cardinal air sign is Libra, and of course the cardinal earth sign is Capricorn. So between 28 of the mutables and 2 degrees of the cardinals, right in there, those 4 or 5 degrees is where your personal life is going to be impacted the most. So that's just kind of a set the stage geometrically with our relative position here in the cosmos. So I took some notes, as I said, and I just wanted to go through some of the many archetypal themes that Neptune stands for or represents in astrology. So some of Neptune's lower octave or off-centered archetypes include, and I got the, by the way, before I start, Joelle got me this book. I forget if it was for my birthday or for Christmas. It's called The Rulership Book. And just for Neptune alone, there's almost 20 pages of items that fall within the purview of Neptune. So I just tried to make a very concise list just to give everyone a taste of these themes and archetypes. So the lower octave, or the more challenging aspects of Neptune, include addiction, alienation, ambiguity, aerosols, which come under the realm of intoxicants, right? Bewilderment, chaos, confusion, conspiracies, cheating, corruption, crime and criminals, deceptions, delusions, distortions, drugs, and you can tell I'm going alphabetically here, escapism, elusiveness, enigmas, espionage, fantasies, falsehoods, flattery, fog and mists, gases, gullibility, hallucinations, hidden forces, hoaxes, illusions, intoxication, intrigues, persecution, and victimhood. So all of us have heard, if you study any astrology at all, and if you follow the astrological world of key phrases, we're all very familiar with these lower octaves of Neptune, right? Victim savior complexes within relationships, people who don't want to take responsibility for their lives. So they're constantly projecting their inner responsibility into the outer world, and they're finding fault, and they're criticizing, and they're judging others, right? It's always the judge, the judging, the complaining, the criticizing. Oh, if it's the government's fault, it's corruption. Oh, it's COVID, it's this, it's my parents, it was my teachers in school, it was this and that. But ultimately, when we come into the higher octaves of Neptune, and especially as Neptune is going to be transiting Aries for the next 14 years, we're going to be moving away from this realm of escapism, of endless doom scrolling, of disappearing into video games, disappearing into self-medication, into intoxication, into passing the buck, right? And as Neptune goes into Aries, we're going to see a whole cultural shift that's going to go away from escapism and victim consciousness into taking personal responsibility for our perception of reality. And this is one of those higher realms. So now I'm going to go through a short list of the higher octaves of Neptune. And this ties right in with feng shui, aesthetics, right? Alliances, artists, ascension, ascetics, astrology, brotherhoods and sisterhoods, chakras, charity, clairvoyance, clarity, colors, communities, communal living, consciousness, divination, divinity, the divine realms, dreams, ecstasy, ESP, encouragement, expansion, fairies, holy rivers, inspiration, intuition, laughter and comedy, meditation, mentors, metaphysics, missionaries, music, mythology, mysticism, the oceans, oracles, pilgrimages, and as Dana mentioned at the top, poetry, predictions and prophecies, religions and reverence, revelation, rhythm, sacred sites, the sea, seances, seclusion, seers, seraphims, spaciousness, spirituality, sympathy. And then when we brew up our little celestial seasonings tea or our yogi tea, right? It rules teas, all different types of herbal teas, telepathy, transcendental knowledge, transcendence, visions, water, waves, wizards, and yogis. So these are the higher and lower octaves or archetypal themes and the realms through which Neptune exerts its mystical influence in our lives within the context of astrology. And of course, if you've been following any astrology at all, you know that Aries also has tons and tons of archetypes. Of course, I didn't even need to go to the book for these because I happen to have an Aries rising in my own chart. So Mars becomes my chart significator or my chart ruler, because as some of you already know, the ruling planet of your rising sign becomes the ruler of your entire chart. So it's kind of like the CEO or the chairman of the board or the chairwoman of the board for your chart. So just a few of these Aries archetypes now as we start to mix and match and blend these issues together to start to get a picture of where we're headed. Aries, action, authenticity, adventure, bluntness, bravery, courage, decisiveness, initiative, passion, a pioneering or exploring spirit, risk-taking, leadership, competition, and valor. So as we move into this, especially after next January 2026, when Neptune enters Aries for good for the next 14 years, all the way through the year 2039, this one kind of jumped out at me. The theme of individuating spiritually will be very strong. And so will the themes of visionary leadership. So types of things that come to mind are heroic spirituality. In other words, the things we've been meditating on, the journeys of healing that we've been on, where we've gone into our traumas, right? Where we've gone in and started to decondition everything we accepted as children. Because when we're born, up to around the age of 7 or 8 years, we're literally like a blank slate. We're like psychic sponges. We're literally absorbing the energies and the vibes, and most importantly, the actions of those around us, whether they were our actual parents or parental figures, if we were raised with our grandparents or with nannies or with, right? There can be so many initial influences when we're little kids. But those perceptions of what's possible, those early impressions of reality, of how the adults in our lives dealt with stress, their reactions to the politics of the day when we were little, right? Because as eternal spirit souls, when we incarnate into this material realm in a temporary body, we're all born into a particular time and place in the ongoing drama of Earth history. So we're born into a particular country. We are born into and raised, usually most of us are raised in a single language. Some of us are raised bilingual. And Joelle and I have friends in Europe who have raised their children to speak 3 and 4 languages as they're being raised. So they can be trilingual or quadrilingual, right? But we're born into a culture. We're born into the backdrop of a political landscape that has history and traditions and memorials and, right, celebrations of great victories and remembrances of great defeats, right? So our language, our early conditioning, and again, I can't emphasize this enough. We don't learn mostly by what people tell us. We learn by what we watch them do with their actions. And we've all heard that old phrase, actions speak louder than words, or monkey see, monkey do. So we all know when we study our ancestry, when we study our genetic heritage, our philosophical or religious or spiritual heritage that runs down through our family, we're all getting more and more familiar these days, thanks to the work of Gabor Mate and Caroline Myss and so many other thought leaders and influencers who have made, and Marianne Williamson comes to mind, so many have introduced us to a whole new lexicon to understand how conditioned we are, right, as spirit souls. And so much of our life here in the Western cultures, the commercialized, more materialistic cultures of the world, we spend a lot of our adult lives unpacking our childhood, right? I'm thinking of the words to that song by Peter Gabriel. Digging in the dirt to find the places we got hurt. Digging in the dirt, right? So we're literally deconditioning ourselves and learning to release so many things that no longer serve our conscious evolution, things that may have been very true for our parents, for our grandparents, and on back through our heritages, right, our ancestry. But now in this time of rapid transformation, so many things have to go. And it's those attachments that we have to those old ways of thinking that create what we call limiting beliefs, right? We're interpreting reality through the five senses, electrical impulses being picked up by the nose, by the ears, by the eyes, and these impulses are being filtered through the mind, which is totally conditioned in so many ways. So these themes of Neptune and Aries is going to be really strong about all those things that we've been meditating on, the traumas we've been healing, the therapy and the counseling that we've gone through. Some of us have gone through plant medicine journeys with shamans who've held space for us, plant medicine facilitators. Other of us have gone through journeys, myself included, with I'm on a long journey of recovery, right? I had a big trauma when I was a young boy, and I self-medicated with alcohol for decades, and then I moved into medicinal cannabis, and then I moved into other and other ways of treating this as I gradually moved through this journey of self-realization. So this theme of individuating spiritually will be very strong. And the sense for us is going to come to the fore of being on heroic spirituality, heroic being Aries, spirituality being Neptune, right? So there's this internal feeling inside all of us of being on some sort of mission or a quest or on some grand dramatic adventure that we're on as we realize who and what we actually are. So other themes are the spiritual warrior, the warrior sage. Some of you know the work of Joseph Campbell and the power of myth. I was very heavily influenced by that public television series, The Power of Myth, which was filmed out at Skywalker Ranch, George Lucas's place in Marin County, where Bill Moyers from the World of Ideas interviewed Joseph Campbell. And Joseph Campbell's best known for his deep work in mythology and for articulating the hero's journey. And that hero's journey work of Joseph Campbell directly influenced George Lucas. And that's where we got all those early Star Wars sagas. The first three Star Wars in that first trilogy were heavily influenced by the hero's journey of Joseph Campbell. Another thing that came up this weekend when Joelle and I were talking was God helps those who help themselves. So again, it's a repeating theme of taking responsibility for our perception of reality to end the self-undoing and the self-sabotage of blaming others for our experience and taking full responsibility, knowing that, hey, I have created my own reality through my conditioning and through my own quest for deeper and more comprehensive spiritual knowledge, right? So I just also made a short list of some pioneering, trailblazing, or trend-setting personalities who were born with Neptune and Aries. Again, just to give us some background context and to show us, what are these themes? How do they show up in the past? So one of the main ones was Swami Vivekananda, who had a personal sense of mission to leave India and come to the West and bring with him issues of Eastern spirituality, right? Vedic religion, and most notably yoga, the practice of yoga. W.E.B. Du Bois, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, was born with Neptune and Aries, and he founded the NAACP, right? The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. So there's this theme of championing the underdog when Neptune goes into Aries. Aries is very much, it's interesting. Aries is the cardinal fire sign ruled by Mars. So we associate Aries with action, authenticity, courage, leaping before we look. And the lower octave of Aries can be very impulsive and very impatient because it's that Mars, god of war. Let's get on with it, right? So I have that Aries rising in my own chart. And it's interesting because I was born in Encino in the West San Fernando Valley. back in January of 1965. So as a little kid, I grew up watching the Los Angeles Rams. And of course, on the side of the helmets of the Rams are that curled symbol of Aries, right? And my mom said when I was born that the veins on my forehead came up through my third eye above my nose and curled up onto the forehead of my, on the front of my head. So I actually had the Aries symbol on my head in the veins of my little baby skull, right? And so Aries, right? The ram. So the LA Rams and Roman Gabriel, right? The walls of Jericho and Los Angeles, as you know, it means the city of angels. And I grew up on a little street in Woodland Hills called Dolorosa Street. And if any of you are Christian background, you know that Dolorosa was the way of sorrow and suffering. So it's all, and I brought this up because all of us have synchronistic symbols, archetypes, and themes that are spread all over our lives. There are certain numbers that we tend to see everywhere, numbers that have deep intrinsic meaning for us. There are colors that we resonate with, right? There are numbers that show up in our phone numbers and our addresses and our email addresses and how old we are when certain things happened in our lives. These themes are all encoded when we take birth. We bring all this stuff into this life with us as kind of like this mystical, mythological roadmap. Like the symbols and the signals are everywhere. If only we can quiet our minds to let them in, right? That revelation, again, the higher octave of Neptune. So championing the underdog, Mahatma Gandhi was born with Neptune in Aries, and we all know what Gandhi did, right? Marie Curie, the famous female scientist who did pioneering research into radioactivity. She was the first woman to win not one, but two Nobel Prizes in two separate areas of science. And of course, Alfred Nobel. Now, here's a little darker side of Neptune in Aries, Aries being ruled by Mars, the god of war. When Neptune transits Aries, not only now, but back during the Civil War times, and again, 165 years prior to that, we saw the development of different weapons that were used in military campaigns and in warfare. And so I forget his first name, but the gentleman with the last name of Gatling developed the Gatling gun, which was like the first rapid firing machine gun ever. The repeating rifle, the Spencer repeating rifle, was developed during Neptune's transit in Aries last time. And so Alfred Nobel actually invented dynamite. And of course, dynamite has very useful purposes, blasting through mountain ranges so we can put highway tunnels through to shorten our trips. But he realized the destructive nature of his invention, and so he bequeathed one of his legacies he left was the Nobel Peace Prize to award to people who are furthering the cause of peace. So now I wanted to go through just a few of the darker sides of Neptune in Aries. Interestingly enough, Neptune's transit through Aries has a lot to do with assassinations because there's this sense of Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, there's a resonance with martyrdom, right? With great sacrifices for the greater good. Being born in 65, I also grew up with the TV series Star Trek and Mr. Spock, the Vulcan, he was this wise man, live long and prosper, remember? He said, the self sacrifices for the good of the many. The good of the one sacrifices for the good of the many. So this was that age of Pisces sacrifice, right? In Christianity, the crucifixion, the greatest sacrifice, right? The martyrdom, people dying for a higher cause, people dying for a belief system, right? Holy wars, religious wars. So there is this interesting, strong, kind of darker side to Neptune and Aries that resonates very strongly with assassinations. Gandhi was assassinated. Abraham Lincoln, obviously. And there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump as well. And it was interesting because Neptune wasn't quite in Aries yet, but it was almost foreshadowing this long 14-year transit where we're going to see a lot more of all of these worldwide. So some of the other darker, lower octaves of Neptune and Aries include fanaticism, where people get gripped and possessed and literally haunted by a vision that becomes so strong that they lose their grounding and they can very easily drift off into delusions of grandeur. Julius Caesar was born with Neptune in Aries, or he lived during the time Neptune transited through Aries. He got a god complex. He was a tyrannical leader, which by many historians' point of view, heralded the fall of that empire, right? So martyrdom, fanaticism, assassinations, delusions of grandeur, the god complex, religious violence, right? Um, Religious bombings and terrorist attacks. Um, this sense of sacrifice and martyrdom is very strong. So these were just some of the notes I took. Now, for on a personal level for us, how's this going to show up for us? Well, there are as many ways this can show up for us individually as there are people. So much of this will totally have to do with where you are personally on your own individual journey of conscious evolution. But suffice it to say that for most of us, from 2011 until now, we have gotten a pretty good exposure to what doesn't work for us, the ways we distract ourselves, the ways we dive into Netflix or scrolling on social media or having one too many glasses of wine or whatever it might be. There's no judgment or criticism in this. This is just that background archetypal energy that we're finishing with Neptune through Pisces. But again, on the collective level, we're going to see these themes emerging more and more. And the positive is that we're going to go away from this victim savior, giving the power away to others, abdicating our personal sovereignty, right? We are conscious beings with choice. We are sovereign, conscious beings with choice. We can't change what happens in the outer world. It's completely out of our hands. So this is where that Pisces Neptunian archetype of surrender comes in very handy. Now, surrender doesn't mean waving a white flag around and rolling over and playing dead. I practice bhakti yoga, and so surrender is one of the highest things we can do when we surrender to that divine presence that's never in absence. However that shows up for you in your own individual perception of spiritual reality, that higher self, that higher power, Mother Nature. For some, it's the Big Bang, it's the universe. For others, it's the goddess and the divine feminine. For others, it's the sacred warrior. I'm thinking of that famous book, um, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. That's another archetype that's gonna, right? And where in the past, there have been revolutions through military campaigns, what we're entering into now, especially with the concurrent transit of Pluto through Aquarius, is now we're seeing a revolution in the collective consciousness, right? So there's a great wave of a higher vibration that's in the world now, especially since the 1960s, interestingly enough. There was a wave of Eastern philosophy, Eastern practices, meditation, vegetarianism, mantra meditation, chanting, communal living, permaculture, um, recycling, reusing, repurposing, depending on your age. You know, there was this whole counterculture that was created in the 60s, right? And there was that famous Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo, which I have in my chart, which was the transformer, the awakener planet Uranus with the revolutionary, right, Pluto, this awakening transformation seed that was planted between 1964, 65, and 66 when those two planets were conjunct. So we saw the whole 60s, 70s thing unfold. And now that whole cycle's coming full circle to where people are actually being able to ground these principles in some sort of practical contribution to the greater good. So just to recap, on a personal level, this has everything to do with your own unique individual journey of conscious evolution. And from the highest perspective, there's no one further along or further behind. We are eternal living entities. So we're all exactly where we're supposed to be at this precise moment. One of my friends is a Zen Buddhist, and he used to say, Jim, where else would you be but right where you are? So speaking of tea, I'm going to have a little sip here. I'm getting a little hoarse. So I hope that paints a picture of the collective, and I hope that empowers you as an individual to carry on from where you are at this moment, because we're not behind. We're not late. There's no sense in comparing ourselves to the successes of others. It's an illusion. For myself personally, I can share that the only person I'm comparing myself to is the man I was yesterday. That's the only compare. I don't want to get caught up in, oh, I wish I had more followers, and oh, I wish I was making money. Of course I do, naturally. But I've been beating myself up for a long time. I've dealt with truckloads of self-doubt, um, self-deprecation, self-loathing, actually self-hating, where I was so caught up in that comparison game, that competition, right? Of the Western mind, the material paradigm of the Western industrialized, commercialized portions of the world culture. I got so caught up in that, and it's really depressing. So when we realize that we are eternal, sovereign, conscious beings with choice, this transit of Neptune through Aries is really going to be a lot about dropping into our inner world, quieting down the mind, turning off social media, turning the cell phone off, logging off the internet, telling our friends and family who are around us, hey, this is my self-care time now. I'm just going to drop into my inner world, right? And just get in tune with, this is like some of the things I ask my clients when they come to me for readings. What do you love? What are you really, really passionate about? Right? What do you really, second question, what are you really good at? What do you naturally have a talent for that just comes like second nature to you? It's no effort. And what would you do even if you wouldn't get paid for it? What would you tend to do even when no one else was watching you? You had some time off, your bills were all paid. What would you go gravitate towards? And the third question, how can you offer this in service to the greater good? So what do you love? What are you passionate about? What are you really good at naturally? What is just your natural essence that comes through, your creativity, your unique genius, right? One of my teachers has this phrase, everyone has unique genius, everyone. But if you convince a fish that it has to climb a tree, it'll spend its whole life thinking it's a failure. So again, to tie it in with the School of Intention, with the Tao of Dana, with the universal realm of feng shui, this ancient wisdom tradition that Dana is such a master at, I invite you now into that realm of Neptune going through Pisces, when you yourself, as a unique, conscious, sovereign being with choice, can ask yourself, how do I want to contribute to the greater good? And there's no right or wrong answers to these questions. There's only your answer. So with that, I'm very, very honored and privileged to accept Dana's invitation. By the way, in human design, I'm a projector, and our strategy is to wait for the invitation, which explains why none of my marketing, well, not none, but a very small amount of my marketing, promotions, and advertising ever really yields any readings with clients. It's always through word of mouth referrals or invitations that come from being part of a community or a network. Isn't that interesting? So when my wife Joelle introduced me to human design, I was like, I saw that about being a projector, and I was like, holy smokes, Batman, this stuff's real. I'm into this. So anyway, thank you, Dana, so much. I just so esteem your work in the world. I so respect you as a master and as a bringer of a ray of, I always say Dana is like sparkling sunbeams, and her smile lights up the whole world. So I'm very honored and privileged to be here and contribute just a little bit to this discussion. So thank you so much. I
This
appreciate it.
was magical. Thank you so much. This was absolutely incredible. And I don't know about any of you, but I feel like that really gives a whole new layer and dimension to everything that's happening right now. And it's, I think, such a big deal. I know many of you probably are sitting here with things. I know you all always have astrology questions. Now that we have a legitimate astrologer in the room, please feel free to ask questions. I also want to just be very clear. Jim's going to turn around this idea that human design only brings in people in one way. And I want to make sure that you follow him. And if you are interested in knowing more, reach out to him. I'm going to keep all of his information when I post this and when I send it out, when I send out our next email for Superstar, so that you can stay in touch, because his reading for me was so dead on. At a time when I really needed to hear all of it. And so, not just dead on, but very helpful. You know, you don't need someone to tell you who you are. Sometimes you want someone to help you see, like, exactly what are the things I'm looking at right now. Like, why is everything changing? What does this all mean? And he is a wonderful interpreter of the cosmos with great intuition. And so I will make sure that that's all there for you. But the floor is yours, guys, to please ask questions if you have them.
By the way, Dana, I'm running a special right now. My new client reading is $100 off.
Oh, that's amazing.
And my relationship compatibility reading also is discounted $100. And so I've lowered my prices because of the times. I know so many people are just being challenged economically right now because of all the unexpected changes, the layoffs, the changing political and social landscape of the country. And so it's just something I felt impelled to do. So
Well, that is absolutely lovely. There's a question about this. What do you need to do if you don't know what time you were born?
I can still give a very good reading if you don't know the time you were born. Um, I know about rectification, but it's a very complex and time-consuming process to rectify a chart. And with the busy, I'm just going to be honest and transparent here. With the pace of my life and everything that's going on, I just don't have the bandwidth to do rectification. So there are other techniques I can use to fill in the gaps, because what the exact birth time does is it snapshots the house system, right? So it shows the rising sign, which defines that first house cusp or the ascendant, and then it sets up all the 12 houses of the chart. So then we can look and see which houses are your planets falling in, right? So without the exact birth time, I'm going to lose the house system. But there are other ways I can fill in, and I can just intuit, right? My guides will connect with the guides of the client, and I'll just be intuitively inspired to share exactly what they need to hear in that moment.
That's awesome. Checking to see if there are more people who have questions. I know Lisa has her astrology questions. I was like, I know Lisa's gonna have a question. I want to hear what it is. You always have the best questions.
So I know, like Sarah and I joke, I know just enough astrology to, like be dangerous. I just, like I've had my chart done. I am Capricorn with Gemini moon and Gemini rising, also a projector, by the way. You said, yeah, exactly. You said, I've never fully grasped the differences between the sun and the moon and the rising. I know that I relate to it all. And when I learned I had Gemini moon and rising, like, and learned what that meant, that made so much sense to me. And you said, like, that it's the ruler, which I think you just explained, that sets the houses. But could you go into a little more? Because I think everybody here is at very different levels of knowledge of astrology. And so just assume we know nothing.
Okay, sure. That's an excellent question, by the way. Thank you. So the ascendant or the rising sign, so the moment you take your first breath, if we were on the ocean and there were no mountains to obscure the eastern horizon, and we looked due east, which actually is here on this side, I don't know how it's flipped here. If we could see that exact point, there'd be so many degrees of our rising sign will have risen above the eastern horizon when we're born. So that entire 30-degree section of the zodiac, which is 1/12 of the sky, so you divide 360 by 12, you get 30, right? Those 30 degrees of each sign, and the precise degrees, number of degrees that have risen above the eastern horizon when we're born, that's our ascendant. Okay, so the ascendant is the mask that we wear in the world. It's two things in astrology. The ascendant is the lens or the filter, like these reading glasses, right? It's the lens that we look through. It's the filter that filters our perception. And we look through that energetic lens or filter and we perceive reality through it. That's one side of it. The other side of the ascendant or the rising sign is it's how others see us, especially on a first meeting, when we first are introduced to someone. So for instance, I have a 10th house Capricorn sun, right? I have a 12th house Pisces moon, but my rising sign is Aries. So my first impression that I make is Aries. People see that Aries energy. It's very impatient, impulsive, it's authentic, it's raw, it's real, it's blunt. It can be, it can sometimes shock people, and people can get offended sometimes, and I'm not even aware of what I'm saying because I'm just expressing so authentically. I got to be real, say what I feel, right? But inside, I'm a Capricorn, and Capricorn is a yin feminine sign. Interesting, isn't it? Capricorn is associated with being very ambitious. Richard Nixon was a Capricorn. David Bowie, born the same day as me. Stephen Hawking, Elvis Presley, they all share my birthday. Very outward people, but it's a yin. Capricorn has that yin polarity, that feminine polarity, which gives it the ability to withdraw from the turbulence of the mainstream and bide its time until the situation's ripe for its ambitions, right? So I use the analogy of an avocado. The skin of the avocado, the first thing you see when you pick up an avocado is your ascendant, the rising sign. As you peel that skin off, the soft edible part is your moon sign, because the moon in astrology governs over how we instinctively react to stimulus in our immediate environment, right? So people who have an Aries moon, they tend to be very fidgety and they got to move around and they never can sit still. They're just action. The moon is disposited by Mars, right? But I have a Pisces moon, which is very sensitive and vulnerable and intuitive and empathic. I can literally feel the vibes of other people. So if I'm standing in line at the grocery store and someone who's really going through it stands behind me, I'll start to feel all this like anxiety in my solar plexus. I'll really like, ooh, and I'll turn around, I'll say, oh, that person's really going through something. And I have to go out to the parking lot and just and breathe it out, because I actually pick up the vibes of other people. So that second edible part of the avocado is the moon. So the skin is the ascendant, the edible part is the moon, and the core, the last part you see when you meet someone is their sun sign.
Interesting.
First thing you see is their ascendant. The next thing you see is how their moon is reacting to you, to the stimulus around you in that environment. And finally, if you talk to them long enough, those two archetypes will start to subside and their solar soul essence which is the divine masculine, the sun, right? That will come out. That's usually the last of the three. So that, I hope, answers your question about ascendant, moon, and sun.
Yeah, very helpful.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I love that analogy. Right. It describes the layers very nicely.
So you're a Cappy.
I'm a Cappy, December 31st, and then Gemini moon and Gemini rising. So
Yeah,
never a dull moment up here.
lots going on.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Brenda, did you have a question?
I did actually, just a practical question. Jim, I just lost a bit of the thread. You said that Neptune's going to go back into Aries, back into Pisces for how long? Until 2026, or how long is it going back?
It's in Aries until October 22nd.
Okay.
And by then it would have stationed retrograde and moved back into the 29th degree of Pisces, where it'll stay until January 26th,
January.
2026.
Got it. Okay, I
So,
understand now. Thanks.
yeah, Neptune will make its final ingress back into Aries in January of next year.
I found that very interesting, you talking about that final degree of Pisces and how that, I mean, I have several signs that will be affected by that transition. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Dana has, I've walked through the room when Joelle was tuned in with Dana, and she's discussed that anaretic degree. It's the 29th degree of every sign, right? There's 30 degrees in each sign. And so the 29th degree is that critical degree. And so whenever we see a person's chart that has planets in that 29th degree, it means that over many past lives, they've been working on something, but they didn't quite make it. They didn't quite achieve it.
Wow.
Didn't quite accomplish it. And so in this life, there's this indwelling pressure to really cross the finish line this time and seal the deal, publish the book, do the sculpture that gets put into the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art, or something that they've got some big thing they really want to accomplish in this life. And so the sign, the planet, and the house, and of course the other aspects from the other planets, will define what that thing is. So if it's like the 29th degree of Sagittarius in the 9th house, that's the house of publishing. So it could be a literary work or a textbook they want to publish for scientific research at some institute, or any of those other archetypes. So it's a critical degree. And so for the world axis, 0 Aries is the world axis. It's the beginning of spring. It's the first day of spring, right? This is the basis of the tropical zodiac, which we call Western astrology. It's not based on the sidereal zodiac of ancient Vedic astrology, which is a totally different system. But that 29th degree of Pisces represents, it's like the final act of the play, or the last scene in the movie, when the villain and the hero face off, and all the mysteries of the movie that have left you puzzled, the whodunit, the questions, the detective, everything comes to a climax in that last degree. So we're seeing so much changing in the world, geopolitically, environmentally, and of course here in America, we're seeing so many of those 1860s archetypes play out again. And when you study the charts of the players now with the charts of the players then, they had very similar indications in their charts. So I love that quote by William Shakespeare. All the world is but a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. So again, astrology gives that ability to detach from the drama, to step back and get a higher angle of vision, so we can see our lives in context to this overarching drama that's unfolding in the world. And that we're always reminded that, hey, like the LA fires just showed us how fragile we are, and how nothing is promised to anyone. Even the greatest astrologer doesn't know what's going to happen next. That's up to the divine, right? As my grandma would say, God only knows. So it's like, it's very humbling, but it brings a certain urgency. Like the energy of Aries, there's an urgency to step up to the plate, like all hands on deck. we all have gifts. We all have unique genius. So our individual homework assignments at this point in time in our conscious evolutionary journey is we got to find out what we're here to contribute, and we got to get to it, because there are people out there waiting to cross paths just with you. You have a particular unique genius that you're bringing to your feng shui consulting or whatever it is you're trying to do. There are clients who are waiting karmically to cross paths just with you. They have a destined, they're looking for you. And so that's why we're all being called. And Neptune through Aries is that push, that divine mission, that quest, that I've got to get over myself and get out there and render service, you know.
What's so interesting to me, if I could just sort of bounce off of that, is that juxtaposition of the sense of urgency of a 29 degree that I feel through what you described, and the fact that we have to actually slow down. So there's that sense of that exquisite counterpoint almost, you know, and what I also felt was the incredible waste of comparing yourself to somebody else. And I mean, astrology and just the way you've described so many things, there's so much work to be done in your own garden.
Yes.
And if you focus on the outer world, you get pulled out of that. So it's just a very exquisite point. I just really feel that from what you were saying.
Thank you. And I try to tell people, don't feel bad about it, because it's endemic in our culture. From the time we're little kids, our teachers reward us. You know, I remember going to elementary school in Woodland Hills in the 60s and 70s at Collins Street School, right off of Ventura Boulevard there. There was student of the day and student of the week and student of the month. And there was this like ribbons and awards and trophies and playing in t-ball and all this stuff. And it's just part of the karmic predicament that we were born into this time around. So it's not good or bad. It just is what it is. And astrology is just one system among so many other brilliant systems. Richard Rudd and the Gene Keys, fabulous system. Feng Shui is this ancient system where you can discover yourself through this discipline, through this artistic, you know, this way of assisting and facilitating energy flow, and how you can fulfill your dreams just through that. I mean, the sky's the limit. So yes, I always tell people, when the world speeds up, slow down, you know, take a breath. We're not late. We're not behind. We are there's a divine timing to our lives, and even our failures and our delays and our obstacles and our blunders and our regrets, all those things are also factored in to where we can get to this point. And when our cue comes from the director on the stage play of Shakespeare's life, right, we'll know what to do.
That's awesome. Lisa has her hand raised, and someone asked a question I think you can answer probably very quickly. What's the significance of a bowl shape when most of your planets are on one side of your chart? The only thing on the other side is the ascendant, which for me is Gemini. I'm new to astrology. So I have that as well, just so you know. A lot of people do, where like your whole chart looks like it's in one little area, or like all the planets are in one place, or on one half and the other half is totally empty. So Jim, if you want to illuminate what that could point to.
Sure. Wherever the planets show up in our chart is where the emphasis on our conscious development is. So if it's all opposite the ascendant, that's called the east, the western hemisphere of the chart is the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th houses on the other side of the ascendant. That means that the relationships are the big ones. Your work, your colleagues, your co-workers, all your significant relationships, your primary partner, your family members. It means you're not working so much on yourself. The focus isn't developing yourself this time. It's learning through others and what they reflect back to you. So wherever there's a big traffic jam of planets in the chart, that's where the themes are going to keep showing up, where the archetypes are going to keep the repeating lessons. And until you master them, they're going to keep showing up over and over and over again until you move through that evolutionary homework assignment that you've created for yourself. So when you see a big, equal distribution of planets, it's just a very comprehensive life path. But when they're all crunched up in one little part of the chart, that's where that's where you're focusing this time, is in those houses, those signs, and through those planets. That's where the bulk of your evolution is going to come.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I was looking at my birth chart and I have like 2 chunks, and one of them is like a major chunk. But anyway, I'm the Lisa that doesn't really know about astrology, but I do know this. I'm a Leo sun, Aries moon, and what's my other one? Aquarius ascendant.
Wow.
And I'm fiery, right? And you said Aries was real, blunt, and authentic, which I definitely am. And I always thought that was attributed to my Leo.
Well, Leo also has that. Leo's here to be seen and noticed. Leo's here to shine. Leos are very generous. They're noble. You resonate with royalty. And the thing about of course, there's always a higher octave and a lower octave of expression through any sign, any planet, any house, right? So the lower octave of Leo can be vanity, ego, narcissism, right? Those people are always wanting attention. But the higher octave of Leo is they're fun to be around, they're inspiring, they're generous, they just want to give, and they have a past life background of knowing that people are watching them, and actions speak louder than words. So there's a sense of character and integrity and nobility and valor and chivalry. Chivalry goes with Leo. Chivalrous, valorous acts of great courage. Leo rules the heart. Joelle is from France. She's French native, and so the French word for heart is coeur, and that's the root word of courage. And Leo is ruled by the sun, and anatomically, every sign of the zodiac rules a different part of our body. Gemini rules the hands, right? And Aquarius rules the ankles, but Leo rules the heart. So courage comes coeur from the heart. It's just something you're impelled to do because it's the right thing to do. So yeah, Leo, you're meant to shine in this world. You're meant to set an example for others. You're meant to lead with your character, your integrity, your commitment, and that higher sense of mission. Because back in the old days, the kings were the first ones into battle. This is why the game of chess, it's over once you get the king in checkmate. It's over. So the king was the first warrior to lower the sword or the lance or whatever, and they were ready to die for what they were fighting for. They didn't sit behind enemy lines and send soldiers to fight on their behalf. They were the first ones in. So they had tremendous courage. And so that's the Leo warrior sage archetype that I feel with you.
Thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
so funny that you say that, because I always call myself the queen. And I tell the kids, like, you're at the queen's house, or the queen is here. And they always they're like, oh my gosh, they roll their eyeballs and everything. And so now they're finally calling me queen. I'm like, you finally get it.
By the way, a great book and movie is called The Mists of Avalon. It's the Arthurian legends of Excalibur and Camelot as told through the lens of the women. And the power of the divine feminine it's just an amazing movie.
The Mists of Avalon?
The Mists of Avalon with Angelica Houston and other. Anyway, it's a great book too.
Okay, perfect.
So
Thank you.
it's very queen, divine feminine. It's very royal feminine like leadership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So I just wanted to clarify one thing you said, because I think everyone was like trying to figure out what it meant, but it felt like it was more technical, which is, okay, you said that if you have planets or points between 28 degrees of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces, moving up to 2 degrees of Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, anywhere in between those two, that's where this moment, this 29 degrees, which is most of this year, not right now, but for most of this year, where this will be, where a lot of this energy will be. So I just wanted to clarify that for everyone, because I got a message about it, I got another message about it. So can you speak to, I pulled up my chart because I have one planet there, and I can screenshot it and put it up if you want to see it. If you
Sure.
want to show people, I could point out with a pointer what that means, just so that they can actively take a peek at it for themselves if they want to. But
Sure.
of course, you can have Jim look at your astrology in more depth. But I think it's very interesting when you can start to confidently at least see your chart to understand what you're looking at.
Yeah,
Let's see,
because
it's coming through.
the reason it's going to be so key is Neptune's now at the 0 degree of Aries, and Neptune's going to go up to about 2 degrees of Aries and stop. And then Neptune's going to go back to 29 Pisces. So it's going to be retrograding back for the next, I don't know, many months, right? And so whatever planets you have across from that, at that degree, which is a conjunction, across from that, which would be an opposition, and then the other 2 points are the squares, this is where that pressure is going to be felt in that on that planet or point.
So if you look at this chart, which is my chart, guys, you're all looking at my chart. But if you look at this here, so here's Virgo, and I have one planet. This is the only place where I have a 28, 29, 30, 31, 1, 2 degree planet. And so it happens to be Virgo, which is my sun sign, and it happens to fall right here on, almost directly on my Mars in Virgo, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, okay. So this Aries ingress, Dana, for you is down in your 3rd house. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right here.
And it's going to be between 29 Pisces and 2 degrees of Aries. So if you could mark off that little region. And so directly across that, so you've had Neptune opposite your Mars for weeks, for months, like Neptune down here at 29 Pisces at the bottom of your chart has been opposite your Virgo Mars at 2920 Virgo. So this is that, and it's in the 9th house of publishing. So you've recently had this deadline to get your book edited, right?
Yeah.
And Neptune is the creativity, the creative expression. So that's what that opposition has been. That's why it's been like that deadline, that sense of urgency. It's because Neptune was hanging at that last degree of Pisces. And so your Mars is taking action on getting your book published.
That's really interesting. And so I just, for everyone, it actually makes perfect sense. It's probably why I have every deadline. My whole life has been a deadline for the last 3 months. And it makes sense, that sense of urgency, that 29 degrees, like why? I mean, people think I'm losing my mind. I'm always like, I can't go anywhere. I'm working. I'm like, what are you doing up at 2 o'clock in the morning? I'm working. And they're like, why are you working so much? I'm like, I just feel like I have to. There's no real reason. I'm not pushing myself. I'm wide awake and I have to do this. And now, just now, which is so interesting, in these last 2 days, I've been like, I don't have to rush anymore. I don't feel any urgency to do anything anymore in that way that I did even a few days ago. And it's because we passed that point, huh?
Right. It ingressed into Aries and it took that pressure off the gas pedal.
Isn't that so interesting? I mean, I could really pinpoint it down to the day. So for all of you, if you can look, I just want you to see where the degrees are. So you can look at the numbers on the planets. If you can't figure out, they usually have numbers next to them on astro.com. So you can look and see what planets are at 29 you can look at where Virgo is, Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces. See if you have anything between, you said 28 to 30. And then you can look at the Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, and see if you have any planets between 1 and 2 degrees. And that's where you're going to feel that real intensity. You might not. I mean, that's why some things happen astrologically, right? We don't really feel them. We feel like, oh, that wasn't a big eclipse. That wasn't a big deal, but it just wasn't lighting things up in your specific chart necessarily.
Right. There's two layers to what you just said that's really important. I'm glad you brought this up. One is those exact degrees, and the other is if a person has evolved in their spiritual journey, they've consciously evolved past a life lesson where they got the lesson, they integrated it into their complete personality, and they've been there, done that. When that transit comes through, nothing's going to happen. It's like you've already turned in that assignment, you got a straight A on it. You already got an A in that class. You graduated years ago. It's on your transcripts. There's no need for you to go back and take that class again. So that's another key that I tell people, because I'll see Joelle go through these incredibly challenging transits in her chart, and nothing, she just goes right through it. And it's because she's very evolved. And so some of those transits will knock me flat for weeks, and I'm like groveling around trying to get my bearings, and she's like, what's going on, you know? So it's very personal, and it's so mystical. I like to say, all of these esoteric sciences like numerology, astrology, tarot, all of them, all the divination arts, right? They are inconceivable and miraculous. They defy rational explanation, but they work. It's like in my own practice, I don't advertise or promote myself as an astrologer who makes precise predictions. I don't. But invariably, when my clients get back in touch with me down the track, sometimes months or even years later, they'll say, dude, everything you said happened. And I'm like, cool. I don't know how it's happening, but I know it works. And so I just allow it to come through. I don't question it. It just, over time, you just start realizing there is some mystical divine component here that is beyond, it's a hoaxes. It's beyond the realm of sense perception. It's transcendental. It's mystical, it's spiritual, and it's real. And we know so little. What we think we know is this tiny, tiny, minute sliver of what there is to know. Like Buddha, when he was speaking with his disciples underneath the bo tree in India, he said, what I'm teaching you is like this leaf, but what there is to know is like this whole tree. So even though I've been reading charts for over 30 years, I really seriously, honestly feel like a novice. Like it takes hundreds of lifetimes to even start to get a handle on this stuff. It is so vast. And there are so many different systems of astrology, and there are so many different processes and procedures and techniques and charts and different Uranian astrology, and there's Sabian symbols, and it just goes on and on. And it's like a library, an endless library of knowledge. And I'm just now getting warmed up, seriously. So it's very humbling.
It's also thrilling because people are changing. And I think there's also a lot more that we can do learning and working with all of this energy, because now this information is being shared openly. People are much more interested. And there was one thing that struck me about when you said I am, when you said Aries is I am. I've been feeling lately and seeing lately, there's the negative aspect of it, which is I am, like hyper nationalism and like craziness, where everyone thinks that they are the best thing that ever happened to this world. But then the I am of, I am a sovereign being. I am not going to be in the matrix anymore. I am not going to be taking in other people's limiting beliefs. I am not going to be controlled by other people. And so there was something really powerfully empowering about hearing that I am and the ways that that can manifest, and really everyone claiming that for yourself. Like you said, Jim, like being really clear about what you want to create in this decade ahead, but also starting from that place that I am. The way that you said it and the way it hit me, I was like, yeah, I am, not I am being told to, or I should. I am.
Wow. Joelle and I just spent a marvelous time this last weekend with some very, very elevated souls. And I was just taking like so much from them. And one of them said, the divine wants to experience you personally, wants to have a relationship with you because only you have that unique, individual, one of a kind. There's no two souls alike anywhere. We are forever unique, individual, sovereign beings. There's no two of us alike anywhere. And the divine wants to experience us in that sacred, that Neptunian, right? It's a higher octave of Neptune where romantic love goes into divine love. Who used to sing, bring me a higher love, whoa. Remember that song? So it's like that higher, we all have an eternal divine connection with our source. Just like each one of my fingers has a unique connection to my whole body. The pinky, the ring, the middle, the index, the thumb, they're all fingers, but none of them are the same. And they all have a very specific function, like, hey. So it's like that we all have that. And what Michael Bernard Beckwith from the Agape Center in LA, he always says it's the divine presence that's never in absence wants you to pay attention, because only through you can the divine appreciate that aspect of the totality. So we are absolutely, how do you say, we are the starring actors and actresses in our own movie. And the director wants to see us shine. The director wants us to get the credit. Like Martin Scorsese wanted Leonardo DiCaprio to get, he just wanted to see Leo shine, or it's like that. The director wants to be in the background and wants the actors to get the credit. So it's like, because how does the person who already has everything enjoy themselves? By making things possible for everyone else, by facilitating everyone else's dreams. That's where we get philanthropy and charity and being patrons to the arts and museums and right art galleries. And so it's like they've already set themselves up, so they want to just empower everyone else. So that's why we love you so much, Dana, is because you're always empowering your community. You're sharing.
Well, that's very sweet. And this has been such a magical time. I think everyone agrees. Everyone has been nodding and writing notes and shaking their heads through the whole conversation. It's been such a magical experience, Jim. I can't even tell you. Nick asked a really great question. What significance do you put on your chosen name, by the way, in terms of your energy and life path? Is there an astrology of etymology, given names and surnames? I mean, just curious question. All these systems are fascinating.
Wow. I know in the field of numerology that they assign certain numbers to certain letters. So in that context, absolutely, your name has a very unique vibration to it. And what's interesting I've been to India, where I learned about Sanskrit, and the Sanskrit language is called Devanagari. It's not a human language. It's a divine language that was revealed to humanity. And it's so precise, you don't speak Sanskrit, you sing it. Dehinosmin jata dehi komaram javanam jara tatra dehantara praptir dirastatya namuyati. And then in English, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So Sanskrit is sung, it's musical. It has chords and vibrational harmonics to it, each, right? And so if you trace back English, like Christ, Christos, Krishna, the word Christ in English comes from the Greek word Christos, which means the lover of God. And Christos in Greek, you trace back to Sanskrit, Krishna. Krishna is the all attractive one. So it's all about, so everything's connected. And Dana has Sanskrit roots, right? Like Dhananjara. And there's all these deep, deep esoteric spiritual vibrations to every syllable, to every consonant and vowel. It's all mystical. So numerology is the closest thing I can think of. I'm sure there's an astrological corollary to your name, your given name. But yes, that's why a lot of people change their names during their lifetimes, because they have evolved into another vibrational frequency. So they want a name that better reflects that. So when I'm in India, my name is Jayananda. Jaya means victory, and Ananda means blissfulness. Ananda. So we are all Sat Chit Ananda. We're eternal, full of knowledge and blissfulness. Sat Chit Ananda, Ananda. So Jayananda means one who takes bliss in victory. And the way I win is when my clients win. When my clients win, I win. Because I have a Pisces moon, which is all about being devotional and in service. So, yeah, that's a great question. That's a beautiful question. Thank you.
Jim, I have a question real quick. Like you were talking about the names. Like in the Bible, like Abraham and Sarah, they changed his name from like Abram to Abraham and then Sarah to Sarai. And like before her name changed, like she couldn't have a baby. And then after the name change, she had a baby. And before the name change, he didn't have any kids. And after he was the father of nations.
Yeah, I'm not well versed in the biblical tradition of Christianity, but again, our name, there's an airline in Malaysia, I think, called Garuda Airlines, and Garuda is the name of the eagle carrier of Lord Vishnu in the Vedas. And there used to be a soft drink called Simba. It was this sweet, kind of tasted like Mountain Dew when I was a kid in the 60s and 70s. And Simha from the Sanskrit means the lion, not a Simha. Simha, Singh. And in this Joel's Kundalini yoga tradition, they all have like Kiran Jot Kaur and Jayadev Singh. You hear the Singh, S-I-N-G-H, Singh. It comes from Simha, the lion. There's a connotation with Leo, of royalty there. The great Maharajas of Jaipur in India and the Maharashtra state. So it's like everything's interconnected. And Dana mentioned a few minutes ago something that's really exciting to me, is we are living in an era when all the hidden esoteric knowledges are either being rediscovered or they're being more accepted, or science and physics and mathematics are now coming to the same conclusions through neural research, through quantum mechanics, through the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza and Deepak Chopra and Marianne Williamson and all these, Richard Rudd. They're rediscovering stuff that the sages have known since time immemorial. And there was this split between astronomy and astrology during the Dark Ages, because astronomy and astrology used to be one science. And Galileo was a famous astrologer, and Nostradamus was an astrologer, and Leonardo da Vinci was an astrologer, and Benjamin Franklin was an astrologer, and even Teddy Roosevelt, he was a Scorpio. President Roosevelt used to keep his horoscope mounted on a chessboard in the Oval Office of the White House. And every day he would say, I keep my eagle eye on my Moon-Mars opposition. So it's all coming back to the surface, and they're discovering ancient civilizations that have been around for tens of thousands of years. And so we're going to live through a time when history is going to be completely rewritten the way it actually happened. We're just now discovering the puzzle pieces. It's such an exciting time to be alive. So I'm really, I get excited. Yeah, I get so excited about this because I've been like, yes, it's like a detective story.
It is so awesome. Thank you, Jim. A million times over, Neptune in Aries is going to recolor our lives and we're going to be doing the coloring, but it's going to be a big opening, this big shift. I mean, obviously I've already felt it. I haven't stopped moving for a minute. I love Aries energy so much. Everyone, please, please, please reach out to Jim with all your questions, all the things, book readings, get to know all the things he's doing. I just had, I mean, even though I had a reading from you, learning from you in this way was absolutely magical. And Joelle, thank you. Jim, thank you. And everyone, thank you so much for being here. I think we can all say this was pretty freaking amazing way to kick off a new era, really understanding it from a whole different perspective. Joelle, people are asking, can you share the link to his site? Yeah, I'm going to, when I post this, I will, but also, let me see if I can pull it up. Or do you have it, Jim? Do you want to put it in? Or can Joelle put it in?
Here, it's www dot here dot stardusterservices.com is my website, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. Like I said at the top, I'm going through my own transformational journey with my own healing and my own, it takes a lot of bandwidth to go inside yourself and, look in the mirror and stare down your fears and your limiting beliefs and your self-doubts. But I welcome anyone to contact me. I'll also put my, this is my email, Starduster108, which is that sacred number from all the world's ancient wisdom traditions, 108. There's so many, Starduster108. How come I can't do the asterisk? There it is. Starduster108@gmail.com. And it's funny because my birthday is January 8th. So 108 is my, it's just weird. See what I mean about synchronicities? All of us, if you study your life, colors, numbers, places, themes, songs, certain things will give you goosebumps and you're wondering, why is that, So we're all on a mystical, magical tour of ourselves. And this is the actual highest expression of the human form of life, is self-realization. Because when you understand yourself, you understand the divine, because we're all part and parcel of that same beautiful source that we're all children of the same family. And I just want the world to hurry up and pass these lessons of nationalism and skin color and religious differences and divisiveness and polarity and the dualities and opposites of the world that people are backing in. But it's where they are and it's what they have to work through. And I just want to stand back and like give love and be compassionate and have empathy and just keep working on myself, because that's my greatest gift to the collective, is to just keep doing my own inner work. So for what it's worth. So there you go.
Amazing. Thank you again, Jim. This will be posted soon with all of your information. And I know people are going to be asking for you to come back in the future, so get ready for it.
I'm very grateful to you, Dana. Like I said, Joelle and I respect you highly, and we love your positivity and your enthusiasm. So you're a shining star in the world, and we're very grateful to know you. Thank you.
Well, I'm very grateful for all of you and all of you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Mwah. Bye.
Bye-bye.